Dan, it is upon us. Expectations have never been higher. One thing that makes me take off my hat and throw it in anger, and this isn't taking anything away from AG or he whose name I dare not mention. Tremendous job. Thank you for what you did. But there's a heck of a lot of talent here with the Detroit Lions, and I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think that's my reaction each time somebody brings that up, and it always gets brought up, is we're not going to know until they go out there and play. We're not going to know until these guys go out there and call plays. And, even Dan Campbell said that in an interview we did. I don't know if it was at the owners' meetings, but it was earlier this offseason. He said, look, we're getting everything in place now, but until they make a critical call on 3rd and 7, and we find out how they handle that, and we see them sequence a game, those are the things where you really begin to understand, learn on the job, and define yourself as a play caller. And, these guys ultimately have to do that. But, Sean, your point is a good one, because the other thing that I say to people is when Ben left and when AG left, they didn't take those players with them. And there's still a ton of players on this team. The defense is in better shape now than it was a year ago. And I think offensively, all those weapons are still there. There's some questions to answer in the middle of that offensive line that we can project right now, but until they get out there and play, we don't know the ultimate answers to them. So I know the questions about this team, and believe me, we've all heard them nonstop. We've heard, national people pontificating about why they're going to take a fall because of these things that they don't have anymore. But the truth is, I think they feel pretty good about where they are, and ultimately the season will define that.
Another similarity between them and the defending Super Bowl champions is, and you just touched on it, Dan, I couldn't agree with you more. Listen, we don't know how it's going to work on the offensive line. You took one of the best centers in the game, and he's out now. And I don't care what anybody says, I am not going to dismiss that. And if you remember last year, Philly had to replace a coordinator. Yep. They had to replace one of the best centers in the game. And it took a little while to get that cohesiveness going. Everything that I've heard about Tate Ratledge is positive. I think we know what Graham Glasgow brings to the table. It's going to be a process, but I think it's a process that's going to be fine, Dan.
Yeah, and I think he's going to look. Tate's going to see things that he hasn't seen, and they're going to try to confuse him. It's nice to have a veteran on each side of him. And the same thing with Mahogany, who, look, is not a guy that's had a ton of experience in this league. I think they like what they saw in a very limited audition last year and when he had to come in and play. But I think in the long run, they feel really good about those guards, and they feel like they can hit the ground running with those guys. But, there's going to be bumps in the road. It's not going to be like you had that veteran offensive line out there that you had last year with Zeitler, who'd been a Pro Bowler, and Glasgow, who'd been around, and Ragnow, who, as you said, is one of the best players in the league. Things have changed. So it doesn't mean that you can't get back to where you were ultimately, but to expect that right off the bat might be a little unrealistic, but it's not unrealistic to think that you can win right off the bat, just that you might have to handle some things along the way with those guys. So, look, I think they love what they have seen from Ratledge. I think from the day Mahogany walked in the door and got healthy enough to play, they've loved what they've seen from him. I think the fact that Graham has the experience in the middle of that line is ultimately why they switched that thing up and got him back in there at center very quickly after the Ratledge experience. And I think that alignment makes them feel more secure with what's happening in front of Jared. But look, teams are going to attack that. We're going to see that right off the bat. Teams are going to come after those guys in the middle, and we will see how they handle it. But again, I think this team, and I think they've earned some equity in terms of understanding what they've got and the type of talent they have. I think they feel good about these guys, and I think they're as excited as we are to see them get out there and play and get this thing going.
Hey, Dan, before we talk Packers and all what they've done, any surprises with the Lions on their roster? Any surprises like the Tim Patrick? Was that a surprise for you?
I think we all kind of kicked that around as a possibility just because of the way that Tesla came on and how well he played from really the beginning of off-season workouts when the rookies got there to camp. He just never let up. And you felt like he needed to find some way into that lineup. And I think they felt like they had some depth at receiver. They do like Lovett. They got Meeks on the practice squad. So I just think they looked at it and said, you know what, we're going to start working this guy in now. He's a red zone mismatch. He's got a big body. He knows how to use it. He's fast. He's got terrific hands. And people have seen what he's done in games. I will tell you, what he's done in practice has been equally, if not more impressive, just the plays that he's made week in and week out. So I think that kind of explained the Patrick thing, just finding more time for him. I don't know if there's really anything else that surprised me on that roster. As we looked at final cuts, I didn't really know what they were going to do. It was fringes where you had questions. What were they going to do at the edge with guys that, had shown a little something, a Nate Lynn or an Isaac Ukwu who got let go yesterday. Yeah. So, Baz, I don't think there was really anything that I was that locked into with this team in terms of the roster, because once you got past, core guys, probably a backup, there really wasn't that much in terms of questions. And I don't think, look, again, it was borne out. It's not like anybody that they cut got scooped up by anybody else immediately. I think we always maybe overvalue what we see in the preseason. And as Dan Campbell said a couple of weeks ago, I asked him a question about it. How often are you right about guys that get claimed or not claimed? And he said, Brad's pretty much right 100% of the time.
Hey, Dan Miller joins us, voice of the Lions, sports director of Fox 2. We're here for our Sunday look ahead for the Packers. Before we do the Packers one last time, there's a lot of fans out there that are clamoring for Za'Darius Smith. And Za'Darius Smith is out there pretty much on Instagram, him and his girlfriend, Cash Doll. She's wearing a Lions shirt. She's wearing his gear. He wears his gear anytime he's on Instagram, whatever. What's your take on him going forward? Is he going to be here? Will he be somewhere else? What's the holdup? What do you got?
I have no idea what his phone has been doing in terms of other teams calling. I have no idea if he wants to play anywhere else, or if this is the only place he wants to play, or if he really wants to play and what he wants to do. Guys, I don't know if this is a Lions feeling like their defensive line is set and they're good with what they've got, or if this is a money thing from the beginning where they couldn't come to an agreement on what they've got and to spend and what he wanted, or the role that he wanted and the role that they had to offer. I will tell you, and I understand the perils that come with Marcus Davenport and his injury history. I get all that. But I will tell you, they absolutely love what Davenport brings to that defensive line. And when Davenport has been out there during training camp, he has been really good. I mean, he is just a line wrecker when he's out there. Now, trust me, I understand. The question is availability. And we'll have to see if he can hold up for, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 16 weeks, 17 weeks, 18 weeks, whatever it is. But look, I kind of thought a while back that Z was going to be here. For whatever reason, he's not. And I think if you were going to do it, you would have done it by now. Maybe an emergency dictates that you do it at some point. But I just kept looking at it, guys, and I thought, okay, I believe they're going to sign him. And then you're at the beginning of training camp, and it's like, maybe he doesn't want to come to camp. Maybe it's just a veteran who doesn't want to do camp, and you're just letting him do that. Then it was like, there's 3 weeks to go in camp. You bring him in now. Because if you don't, you got to question conditioning. Is he going to come in and just pull a muscle? He hasn't been working out at football speed and all those things. And then as we got closer, it just becomes apparent they're not going to do that. And it's not like Brad Holmes hasn't been asked a million times and Dan Campbell hasn't been asked a million times. And they're usually pretty honest when you answer. It's them feeling good about their roster. So I don't know that I have any answers that are going to make fans feel any better about their desire to have him here. I think you just have to take those guys at what they say and believe them, because I think if they've been anything, they've been honest over the years about what they're doing and how they do it, and they really don't try to hide that much.
Good morning, Dan. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, and I wanted to ask you about this because I felt like over the offseason this kind of went under the radar, but about 3 weeks ago, Dan Campbell sat down with Brad Galley, and they talked about, some of the things that happened last year. And Dan Campbell, and I quote, said, I failed this team in regards to, them putting so much on trying to go out there and get the number 1 seed and get that home field advantage in the playoffs. And he kind of alluded to the fact that, that may have caused some of the injuries that we saw pile up as the season went along. I wanted to ask you, do you think that there is a de-emphasis this year on winning the number one seed? Because in a perfect world, of course, you want to win your division. You want to win the number one seed. You want to have that home playoff game. But do you think there's any de-emphasis of trying to go out there and be the best team in the NFC this year?
No, I think goal number one for them is to win the division, and then if they can get that bye along with it, I think that sets them up. I mean, Dan Campbell always talks about getting into the tournament. I heard that. I would have to go back and listen to it again. My take on it was that a lot of it was about putting so much emphasis on Minnesota that maybe they weren't necessarily ready for Washington, and I don't even know if I buy that. Look, this team, guys, if you go back and look at last year, with all the issues that they had on defense, and I'm not discounting what Dan says. I think, Dan's trying to put his team in the best mental frame of mind. And I think that's one of his kind of superpowers. He usually has his team ready to play. But if you go back to the Buffalo game and you look really from the Buffalo game on, they were giving up over 30 points a game. Yeah. And they were just running on fumes. They just didn't have any guys left on defense. And Washington just kind of riddled them. And there was pressure on them the whole game. They had an opportunity early in that game to get up a couple scores. They didn't take advantage of it. But I don't know. I'm not questioning Dan Campbell questioning himself, but what I will say, I think one of his best attributes is his ability to read the room and get guys ready. I think last year, bad time to have a bad game maybe against Washington, but more than that, a team that was just falling apart, bringing in guys on Monday and playing them on Sunday, which is unheard of in this league, especially when there's four of them in the same game. Yeah. They just didn't have enough of guys left. When you lose your two best defensive linemen, you lose your best cornerback, you lose Amik Robertson in the first quarter of the game against Washington. And Alex Anzalone had missed time, and Derek Barnes was gone, and Davenport was gone. And it's just, I don't know how you survive that when it gets to be that time of year. And when you get to the postseason, you want to be playing your best football. And the Minnesota game aside, and I know some people will point to that, Washington was playing their best football. I don't believe the Lions were playing their best football at that time. I think they were holding things together at times with sticks and glue, and I think it was difficult.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Dan. And of course, the Lions opened the season with the Green Bay Packers division game right out of the gate. And the biggest news, of course, Micah Parsons becoming a Green Bay Packer. I wanted to get your thoughts on just, do you think that this is a shift in the NFC North at all? How concerned should the Lions be going forward with Micah being in the division now? And just your overall thoughts on the NFC North as a whole.
I mean, it's a huge trade. I mean, there's not many game wreckers in this league, and he's one of them. The Lions have one of them. But look, I'm not ready to sit here and say that after the Lions have won 2 consecutive NFC North titles, that Green Bay all of a sudden is the champ, because there's still the same questions that people were asking about them, last year or coming into the offseason or coming into this year. It's still Jordan Love has things to prove. And it is still, that receiving core. Is there a number one guy out there? Is there a guy that they can count on? Or is it just going to be, a group? I know they drafted, obviously, a receiver that they're hoping will come on. But I'm not ready to say that trade makes the Lions the second choice to win the NFC North. I just think that's disrespectful to a team that's won it 2 years in a row and brings back a really solid core of guys that are getting better, all, basically under the age of 26, and a veteran quarterback who's appeared to be at the top of his game and set NFL records last year and personal records last year for his accuracy and the way that they played. So, look, I full hats off to Green Bay. It's a terrific trade to bring in a player like that. Might there be repercussions down the road? Yeah. But if they win, they're not going to care. So that's a conversation that I know everybody's had at some point in the past couple of days. But full respect, but do I make them the now significant NFC North favorite? No. I said all along, I thought maybe Green Bay was the team that had the least questions about them, because I do think you have to respect the fact that the Lions do have 2 new coordinators. That's a question. You do have a massive change in the middle of your offensive line. That's a question. Minnesota's got a quarterback who's never thrown a ball in the NFL. That's a question. So Chicago's got a new coaching staff. We don't know if their quarterback's any good. And, I'm usually not a fan of teams that go out and spend tons of money in free agency because I think that rarely works. So as you look at it, I said, okay, maybe there's fewer questions about Green Bay than some of these other teams, but I think the questions they do have are still there. Parsons makes a difference, but I think it's disrespectful to the Lions to say, okay, they're not, at least the co-favorites in that division anymore. And further, who cares? Because you're going to go out and play. And you're going to go out and play. And what we think today may not be anywhere near what we think in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. This is just fodder for us to talk about. It's what we do for a living. But to get too upset about what Vegas says or what people think, I can turn on the TV and have somebody tell me the Lions are going to miss the playoffs. I can turn on the TV and the radio and have somebody tell me, that the Lions are going to the Super Bowl to represent the NFC. It's like everybody's got these wild opinions, and then you feel like you have to justify the good ones and take down the bad ones. And it gets to a point where you say, you know what? Talk. Just talk. But, the cool thing is Sunday they play, and that's what we're really looking forward to.
The best in the business, Dan Miller. Always appreciate your time. Safe travels to Green Bay. They got you covered all weekend. Of course, Lomas, TJ, and Dan with the Lions Radio Network. Don't forget about what you're doing with Game Day Live, 10 o'clock in the morning. Wrap it up with Sports Wrap Sunday night. And Dan, bye week this year, I want to get you and Lo over for the barbecue. I will trade you a rack of Duroc ribs and a sausage platter to be named later for your 1934 hat. Can we do business? Can we perhaps do business? All right,
we can talk. Yeah, you found the way to. My stomach is definitely the way to anything.
All right. Hey, fantastic. And
Thanks,
let me
man.
tell you something. By the Lomas brother Gary ate more wings in one sitting than I've ever seen a man eat. It was unholy.
It doesn't surprise me. Probably Lomas went with a sensible salad, but
Hey, appreciate you, Dan. Safe travels to
All right,
Lambeau.
guys.
Bring home a dove.
Thank you,
See you,
Dan.
Dan. Thank you.
thanks, man.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Dan Miller from Fox 2, of course, the sports director at Fox 2. The voice of the Lions. Check out what they do each and every weekend. And always great to be able to have a chance to chat with Dan.
You were almost ready to throw your hat.
Yeah,
Once he brought up the coordinators. Easy, big fella.
Maz is going, no, don't
Easy,
do
big
it.
fella.
He knows, though.
Of course.
Of course. Like,
course.
You have two new coordinators.
Yes.
You have to
And it
talk
can
about
affect you.
You have to talk about
Yes,
it, right?
it can affect you.
I just do not think it's the factor that people make it out to be. Sorry. And you know what? If in 4 weeks it looks like it, I'll be the first guy to say it. Or it could be, I don't know, like the Philadelphia Eagles who started out the year 2-2 last year, and everybody was talking about their new coordinators, and Nick Sirianni had to be fired, and this shows you the importance of a guy like Jason Kelce, and then they fucking lost one game the rest of the year.
Yep.
Yeah.